because it shows it like today when it was not that way. And the dirt in the floors was actually all the way up to the top of these field stones. So that means the ceiling was very low. And the soldiers would have had to duck to get the family in here. And they don't want Georgia sitting in the dirt with the lifeless body of her sister. So they bring a rocking chair for her and the child, and then they leave. They have to go back to the Battle of Gettysburg. And so now the family is down here wondering what the heck is going to happen now. You know, this is a day from hell. You know, it starts off in the morning with the murder of her sister. And what are they going to hear that afternoon? That afternoon they hear hell, because they hear Pickett's charge. And you can't help but hear Pickett's charge. This room is very close to the charge as the crow flies. But it doesn't matter where you are. People in Hanover, 20 miles away from here, said the glass in their windows was rattling from the Battle of Gettysburg. You had 30,000, 40,000, pick a number, soldiers screaming their heads off. You had the largest cannonade ever on the North American continent. 300 cannons being fired. It had to be absolutely deafening. And these poor people, they're already in shock. Now they're getting traumatized all over again. And they're down here in the dark, and the ground is shaking, and the rafters are rocking in this house. And they probably thought the house was going to collapse on them, or a couple of shells would hit it, and they would go up in a big explosion. And this goes on for hours. It goes on all afternoon, and they probably thought it was the end of creation. But finally that subsides, and then late in the day the Union soldiers return with a coffin for Jennie. And they tell the family, oh, by the way, the Union Army's going to win this battle. These people had no idea who was winning this thing. All they knew is there is no end to this fight. And Jennie inherits a casket intended for a Confederate officer, because the Confederates controlled the entire town of Gettysburg. No problem. They had this town locked up. The only thing they did not have was the side of this house to the top of that hill. That's nothing. The entire town is in that direction. And they didn't leave till they were ordered to leave. But they leave this casket behind, and Jennie inherits it. And now we're going to bury Jennie. It's July 4th, 1863. There is a torrential rainstorm. And there often was after these battles. Think about all the dust these armies were putting up into the atmosphere for days. And these armies were cosmic in size. It's hard to wrap your head around the magnitude of this battle. If you go 20 miles in any direction from where we are right now, you will still be on the battlefield. If you took the Union Army and you put them in single file, so, you know, I got a man in front of me, I got a man in back of me, what's the width of a man? Not very much. So we're talking about every private, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, colonel, general, every cavalryman, every wagon, every cannon. That line would extend from here to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is 100 miles away. And that's one army? Yeah, you're going to have some dust in the atmosphere. Black powder. The cannons are spewing black powder for days up into the upper atmosphere, and they are shaking the atmosphere to pieces. You're going to have a little rainstorm. This town absolutely floods big time. But we can't even clean up Jennie. She's still wrapped in a bloody blanket. We can't embalm her. She's got dough on her hands from that morning, and we just take her out. Where are we going to bury her? We bury her in the backyard where the gift shop is. We take her out in the driving rain, put her in the wet sod, no ceremony done. And the day Jennie was buried happened to be George's 22nd birthday. So Georgia, who lived a long life, was always haunted by Jennie, especially on her birthdays. And then within a month or so, we move Jennie into town. We give her a consecrated burial, but we want her in the Evergreen. We want her at the top of the hill, and by 1864 we get her up there. But she was buried 3 times. Now you're going to hear a narration about what happened to her boyfriend Jack and what happened to Wes. It's 4 minutes long. When you're done in the cellar, you will exit through the other side of the gift shop. And I thank you for coming on the tour today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While the battle raged above their heads, the Wade family kept its vigil, feeling that particular unbelieving grief that all civilians must feel when war comes to their own front door. But the story doesn't end there. Wesley Culp, a native Gettysburg boy who'd gone south before the war, had finally returned home with a message from a boyhood chum to his sweetheart in Gettysburg. Wesley Culp had returned to Gettysburg all right, but as a Confederate soldier, fighting desperately on Culp's Hill in the very fields where he'd played as a boy, on the very hill that bore his family's name. The message he carried was from Jack Skelly, a playmate from his youth in Gettysburg, who was now a Union soldier, lying mortally wounded in Virginia a long way from home and loved ones. Wes's regiment had fought against Jack's at Winchester, Virginia, just 18 days before. When Jack was wounded and captured, Wes found his boyhood friend and promised to deliver Jack's dying words to his sweetheart in Gettysburg. Wes was in Gettysburg now, fighting on his family's hill, just a few hundred yards from the girl for whom Jack's message was intended. Wes had tried unsuccessfully to deliver the message on the night of July 1st, and as soon as this bothersome skirmishing for the family farm was over, he'd try again. Wes Culp never got the chance. He was killed in the fighting on Culp's Hill in the kind of tragic homecoming that only war can produce. Jack Skelly's last message to his sweetheart in Gettysburg went undelivered. The irony doesn't end there, though. Even if Wes had lived, the message to Jack's sweetheart could never have been delivered. She was also lying dead at that moment in this very cellar. Her name was Jennie Wade.